Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for the most controversial thing we can talk about in the world. No, it's not politics, it's Warhammer. That's right, the thing that starts more fights than anything else. We're here to talk about tiny plastic soldiers. Joining me, as always, for this fun conversation is going to be Tom. How you doing, Tommy?
Hello, friends.
Tom, my partner at Holy Havoc, which we're going to be obviously going to in depth. Very excited about that because also joining us, somebody else who was at Holy Havoc, half of the Combat Phase podcast, which we're going to get your partner on here too one of these times. We're going to get both of you on. So it's Kenny. How you doing, sir?
Hey, guys. Good to be back.
It is great to have you back, sir. Absolutely. Kenny, you enjoy a special distinction in my heart. Let me tell you that right off the top, because you were the only person at Holy Havoc rocking Fire Slayers, right? That is correct?
I was 83 games now of not only solo Fire Slayers, so 84 games, I guess, total, but 83 that were just Fire Slayers by themselves.
That's crazy.
Exactly. I was going to walk you down that road to saying that number if you didn't say it, because that is boom. Like when you said that at the tournament, my brain sort of like kind of turned sideways in my head. It didn't fit anymore. 83 solo games of Fire Slayers. You have to be in contention for the most experienced Fire Slayers player in the world. Like seriously.
That's more than one game a week.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they played a lot in Sweden, and you got some of that is events. So some of that is 5-game events. You know, several. That's like 30 games there, right there, at least, if not more.
Huh.
It almost makes me sad we're not doing a Fire Slayers focused show with you, but we already did that once, so that's okay. You're gonna go back and see the last time Kenny was on, we talked Fire Slayers. I would be interested sometime, and maybe you can kind of sprinkle this throughout your commentary when we get to the segment, of maybe differences of, what you felt way back then when they were still, you were only like 10, 15, 20 games in, somewhere early, versus now where you're an old, grizzled, long-bearded veteran of the Dwarven Wars, right? And kind of differences you've noticed. I'd be interested to get your perspective, things you noticed throughout. Just maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting when we talk, our Fire Slayer group on Facebook. It's Fire Slayers and parentheses Age of Sigmar. I started it for like tactics for like 3 of us that were discussing it, and there's 400 or so on it now. There's a lot of variety, but there's a variety between, like, are you playing for fluff? Are you doing like Holy Havoc, or are you playing beat face in the UK to win? So there's a range there.
Sure. You should totally. I'll make sure. I'll track Kenny down. I'll get the link for that Fire Slayer group. So if you out there, all of our Fire Slayers players out there, which I like saying, by the way, Fire Slayers players, it's fun to say. All those people, if you want to join up, you can just click the link and then join the community. But as always, let's start with some news, and we've got a couple interesting things this week. So, Tommy, what do we got, brother?
Well, I'm gonna lead with the most rumory of rumors, and that is the boxes that we kind of reported last week. It looks like 8 boxes are potentially going to be dropping, is what the current rumor is. And of those 8 boxes, 4 are going to be 40K, 4 are going to be AOS. And it looks like we may see 1 box for each faction. And if that is indeed the case, then I was totally wrong in some of my low-hanging fruit predictions.
I am now hoping it's the case, just so you're wrong, not because I want the actual products. That's what excites me the most.
Yeah, I've come to accept that. That's pretty standard.
You talking about boxes, like start collecting, and
well, yeah. So these are about double the size of start collecting. You're gonna, you'd end up forking out about $150 per box, 160 some. And these are, they said, about double the model count. The order one they're saying is Sylvaneth. The Chaos one they're saying is Bloodbound. And it's not clear what the Destruction and the Death ones are. Some people have kind of rumored that it's Iron Jaws, but we're just not sure yet. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's super disappointing.
I mean, it's interesting. Those are all popular factions. I get it if they do it, because then my first guess will have basically been correct, which was, and I mean, it's just a guess, I'm not trying to take credit for it, which was, this is sort of a next step, right? Because then you could buy like a start collecting Sylvaneth and then buy the the really start collecting Sylvaneth. This time we mean it. You know, or whatever these are going to be called. Start collecting 2 Electric Boogaloo, I suppose, probably. That's how you name all sequels.
All sequels.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Yeah, it is what it is.
Sure.
So we had rumors that Slaanesh and Tzeentch models are coming. Slaanesh being the big one there. They said it may be into the next year, but there are new models coming. They are not far out.
And the Tzeentch stuff would make sense, given that we've got some Tzeentchy 40K stuff coming up, right? Because we've got Magnus the Red, that beautiful model that many of us are going to pick up and use as demon princes or whatever, just in our regular chaos armies. Never has a 40K fig more quickly been pulled into more fantasy-based armies than this guy will be.
Certainly. And then we have where is it? And then the rumor is that we have another a set of Chaos minis coming next week on the made to or the like kind of like the last chance to buy made to order stuff.
Yeah, made to order, they're calling it.
Yeah, and rumor has it that we're gonna see some Daemonettes.
That's right. The Daemonettes and the Seekers both showed up on the list. Now, obviously, the current Daemonettes and Seekers are still a product, and so that leads everybody to believe. And by the way, they did a poll asking people what the #1 old model they wanted to see brought back was, and the winner was the Juan Diaz Daemonettes. And so that's the rumor that next week, or the 19th or 16th or whatever, what would it be? I don't know, whatever the date is that's next Saturday. Not this coming Saturday, but the one after. I don't know what the date is.
So that's Black Friday Saturday then, right? No. It's the week before Black Friday.
The week before Black Friday. Is that we will get the made to order for the Juan Diaz Daemonettes and the Juan Diaz Daemonettes on Seekers. Kenny, you a fan of those old sculpts? Do you like the Juan Diaz Daemonettes?
I do, yeah. I can only say so much about Slaanesh and Tzeentch stuff coming out, but I am a fan of those models, and I think it's going to be a wonderful time for players over the next few months.
There you go. Uh-oh.
So,
Kenny, blink twice if we should be happy.
Vince, I have to ask you, how long do you think that they're going to be in stock before they sell out?
Well, they put them for what, a week or 2 weeks? They open the window.
Like that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but they have a limited count of how much they do. Like they'll sell out. They will straight sell out.
Well, I think they make them after they get what the orders are.
Yeah, it's
the other way around. Yeah.
Is it?
It's like so. Like for Black Library, you do a limited edition of thing, right? You say, well, we're going to sell 4,000 of these copies because we know we'll make them, and they'll go through really quick, and then they do, and then maybe they don't all sell, and you say, okay, next time we're going to do 3,000, and they're guaranteed to sell, and people will be mad that they get them. They weren't completely, they were exclusive, but people bought them and they got what they wanted for them. So it's like, I mean, for print on demand is what this is, and that's pretty smart. We're like, okay, we're going to open this up, and we're guaranteed to sell whatever, and we're not going to lose anything on it.
I'm interested to see what else they include. Like, what else is going to be in this Chaos run?
Well, it makes me think with and part of the reason I think we've leaned toward the older metal models is because they probably realized, and we've talked about this before, that metal models are really easy to just keep around forever because you have a silicone mold that looks like a film strip basically, right? It's about that, a little smaller than that, and it sits on a shelf with a label with thousands of others. And if you want to spin, a run of it, you pull it off the shelf, you drop it into a machine, and you dump some hot tin, pewter, metal of some kind into it. It flows, you spin it, it dries, it's done. You pop them out. It's really easy to house. It's really easy to it's a small amount of space. It's not like, and they're easy to make. It's just, when you originally cut the mold out of the silicone. Whereas spinning up a plastic model is like crazy complicated and expensive. The difference is mind-boggling. By the way, I'll try to find a link there. I don't know if I've been able to find it online. There's an awesome episode of like how it's made, where they actually walk you through the difference between making plastic figures and metal figures. the difference is astronomical. In time, in cost, in expertise that you need to do it.
Yeah, setting up the stuff. By the way, it's also a nice promo to plug Westworld. If you haven't seen the TV show Westworld, kind of ties into what we're talking about, so it's very good.
There you go.
True.
Very nice.
Yeah, plastic's so expensive to start up, and then once it's like you see it on Kickstarters, these guys that do small, like the Oathsworn Dwarf guys, and I've seen more and more dwarf ones that, I can't jump on all these Kickstarter, kind of fatigue. But they'll do like 16 of them, and he just makes them in their metal, and they're delivered on time, and you're happy. But it's a smaller process.
Yep. Yeah, you can do smaller runs easier. It's so much. So I think this is the realization that they've got these old metal molds sitting around. They're not doing anything, and there are some of these that people want, right? And if it's made to order and they can spin, if they get 2,000 orders from Juan Diaz Daemonettes, they'll just spin out 2,000 Juan Diaz Daemonettes, right? It's like, and again, as Kenny said, it's print on demand. You've got your money because you've already taken the money when you're making the product.
So
they'll be getting some money from me. I know your question, Tom. Am I going to order some? The answer is yes. Yes, I only have 10 of the Juan Diaz right now. I have 10 of the Juan Diaz Daemonettes and 5 of the Seekers. So I will get more. Yep.
Well,
they're awesome.
Only Chaos one too. I mean, this is the first Chaos window, but this won't be the only.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what happens with Slaanesh. I'm excited for new models. So much of that range is so old and ugly and out of date. And obviously, I'm just going to, Kenny, just don't do anything if I'm going to be really excited next year. All right, cool. I'm going to be really excited next year. Great. I'll take that as confirmation.
I know nothing.
All right, Tom, what else have we got as far as news go?
I think that's it, right?
There was
the Warhammer community.
There you go.
So full props to Kenny. Obviously, this was going to be a pick of the week. But it dropped this today that there is a Warhammer seeming web community that is coming. Like, that's happening. Like, an announcement, little image popped up. Do we have that, Vince, or do I need to pull that up?
You can pull it up, Tom. As you may have noticed, I'm on the road again, and my internet connection in hotels is always questionable.
Yep.
So I don't like screen sharing. But yes, I don't know. It'll be interesting to have them running this sort of thing again, to have a place in the web. Obviously, right now, TGA's been doing a fantastic job, It's not like Ben has been lacking for it.
Certainly.
So we've had a great place to go. It'll be interesting to have them back in this mix again. It was fun to see people on Facebook. Your screen is just black, by the way, so I'm talking to hold it on me until your image is ready. But it's been it's funny to see people already responding on the Facebook of like, you better be ready for negative comments. Well, yeah, I'm sure they know what they're getting themselves into. There it is.
Dun, dun,
Let's take a look. Dun dun dun.
We had, what was it, like 1,000 new photos yesterday or today that went up?
Yeah, so that's the other thing that's probably worth mentioning is that if you have is it Snap, not Instagram?
Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, if you have an Instagram and you like hashtag like GW or Forge World or something, like your photos show up in their product page. Like there's a stream of all the paint jobs. Like I'm assuming that somebody is like culling those and managing them. But like they get like who was it? Davey had some of his ogres showed up on the ogre page, on the purchase ogre page.
Eric, but yes,
Eric, sorry. Yeah, Eric.
Fine.
Eric's was. Yeah, but yeah, so Eric's ogres showed up on the ogre page that he just recently brought to on the Iron Guts. So yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That's great stuff. I really do agree. Like, this community is a good thing. This is all exactly what we said we wanted to see happen a year ago, right? And it's all been, so, we mentioned last week of them coming to, sending, Rufio and Ben out to Adepticon, which should be great. And, they're going to be at LVO. So there's just a lot of really good involvement, and I'm happy to see it. I mean, I think it's all obviously positive. This is just more and more and more. And having their people's painted images show in the painted images of the figs is such a good thing in my mind, because yeah, yes, they do cull it, but they show a range of paint jobs, right? It's not all like, it's not like they only pick people who are up to like heavy metal standards. And I think that that's really good, because I think there are some people who are intimidated when they look at like the heavy metal paint jobs or whatever and think, I couldn't do that, right? And Duncan has gone a long way to showing people, yeah, you can, right? You can do this. But this is more like that people can see, oh, there's lots of different people painting these and lots of right? So we mentioned the pick of the week. So let's just jump right into that. Kenny, you had a backup, buddy. What's your pick of the week?
I almost forgot, but no, I remember it. I don't know if you have talked about this, but I've been talking to people like this past couple weeks and I didn't know about it. Did you discuss the Black Library app, the Black Library audio app?
Oh, no. Okay.
So Black Library several years ago used to have an iPad app, and it was great. And it had a really nice search function where you could go by race, by author, whatever, and you could find stuff and buy it there. And then when they got rid of that and you would go online, then they moved all your purchases over. They put out a Black Library audio app a couple weeks ago, and you have things that are there for cheap. So, I mean, boiling it down, again, as we've been seeing price reductions, but through a repackaging or some way, so it's not like just that same thing. So they're doing something to it, so the price is lowered. And then when they come out, other words, they can be cheaper than they used to be. The things that are there, so they're cheaper on the app, and when you buy them, they're stored in the cloud. So depending on how you see it, but you get the app. You put, like I have it on my phone, and I picked up a few things, and they're cheaper. So audiobooks that were 50 are like 40 on this one. But the significant thing was for Age of Sigmar, where the books were all $50. And some of them beginning were 6.5 hours, 7.5 hours, 8.5 hours. And there's just kind of too much, I think, personally, for $50. So when they put this app out, I looked at what they had for the AOS books, and they're from $50 to $26.99. So okay, fair enough. So finish up the collection through that, because nice. 50 was just too much. So if they have, if you have things already in iTunes, it doesn't work. Like as of right now, you have to get it there. It's cheaper, but you buy it there, you can have it in the app. And I've asked them, and I really hope that we get a play speed application to it, because again, listening to things at regular speed is just horrific for me. It's slow. I was listening to it on the drive home, and there was one point where I was kind of stuck in slow traffic, and I had to turn it off because it was just like mind numbing.
Well, yeah, you were saying you normally listen to it at what, 2 times speed or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think books usually 1.5, and podcasts I usually do double speed. And if I can't understand what they're saying, I'll go back and maybe slow it down just for that one brief part. But I don't know. It's just perception for me. Like when I hear things at regular speed, it sounds way slower than it does in normal, like in real life to me. Like if I was listening to this right now, like if I was going back and playing this is a conversation we're having right now. I feel like if I was put it on one speed, it'd be like, would you say that it is? I'm like, oh fuck, God, come on. And other people don't see it. I don't, but So there's a lot of audio, and I still can't consume all the podcasts and everything that's out there right now. There's just too many.
Right. Which is a good problem to have. An embarrassment of riches is still a lot of riches. So yeah, absolutely. All right, Tommy, what about you, sir? What do you got for your pick of the week?
Since we're talking about Holy Havoc, I thought I would mention Hooves of Doom, friend of the show, Matt Carter, who is also at Holy Havoc, has put out a lot of content kind of leading up to the event, and I would want to point out his channel. Hooves' channel has a bunch of stuff regarding AOS and their experience, and so I just want to kind of point, just generally, there are multiple videos that I want to point our audience to check out, especially because if you enjoy the topic that we're going to talk about today, they'll be talking about it more on their channel.
Yes, well, and Hooves had a wonderfully dirty list with Nagash and all 3 Mortarks and 2 Mourngulls. Yes, 2 Mourngulls most notably. And boy, did those 2 Mourngulls make some good friends at the tournament.
Yeah, that's actually it was Matt's list. It was Hoos's list. Him and his wife that Vince and I did our warm up game on Friday night.
Yep, we got a little pregame in with them. That was fun. We did bring down one of the Morngulls, which I was very proud of. Archaon had to go over there and rip one of them down.
Yep.
The Lord of the End Times to bring one of those beasts down. But we got there.
Yeah, we did, and we taught the Mortark some humility. Round two, top of round two, executing all three in the same round.
It was a very fun game, and yes, Hooves and Mrs. Hooves were both awesome, and it looked like they had a lot of fun. I know he's going to do some wrap up and stuff like that. I would be very worth checking out his channel.
And they had a great performance. I'm pretty sure that they ended up going like 9 or 10 points,
right?
Or 8 or 9 points, I think. But yeah, I mean they had a winning record, I believe.
So there you go. Yeah, and we'll get into it when we talk about some games. My pick of the week. So, an interesting thing that came up. So shout out to David Griffin, to @NashofSigmar on Twitter. And he pointed out a conversation that was happening on the TGA forums around ITC and sort of tournament organization and such. And I'm going to link that conversation down below because I think it's worth having your voice heard on. It's a discussion on the double turn, which we had a big, long conversation about there, Tom. And, there was... Yes, indeed. And we were talking, there was somebody in that conversation who was very against it. I am notably on record and like 100% behind it. I think the double turn capability, the rolling randomly for turns at the start of each round, okay, yep. I think is one of the most critical, good, positive components of Age of Sigmar, because it keeps the game incredibly dynamic. I do the same thing in my role-playing games. In D&D Round Around, we roll the new initiative, which is an old throwback to 2nd edition. And I really, really believe it changes the entire dynamic of the game. And to me, I would have less fun playing without it. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we this opponent that Vince is speaking of was enthusiastically assured us that it was not possible to win after you have, like, if so you went first and then the enemy gets a double turn, so the bottom of 1, top of 2, if they get that double turn, it's impossible to come back from that.
That's horseshit.
And this was on Saturday night. We had this conversation. On Sunday morning, they were our first opponent. We took first turn, and then we proceeded to demonstrate how that's done.
They did get the double turn against us, yes, and it did not end in an overwhelming victory for them, nor us, to be fair. It ended in a wonderful game. We'll talk about that in a moment. So I'm going to put that discussion down below. Mm-hmm. It is worth having your voice heard. There's a lot of different opinions on it. If you and here's what I would say ultimately. My only fear would be that suddenly there's like some hard rule instituted, and that's kind of what the discussion's around, right, with the ITC. Like that suddenly we go back to the you go, I go constantly, and that becomes the generally accepted thing. If you and your group enjoy the you go, I go, and you and your personal meta find that to be the more compelling way to play that way. Okay, I don't care. I don't want to tell other people how to have their fun, but I do want to have the option to go to tournaments and play in games and feel like I can go out there in the world and experience the version I enjoy as well. So I just don't want to see a rules change like that become a gold standard out of what I think is honestly more fear than looking at the upsides. But again, I understand that's heavily personal opinion, and I fully admit that. All right, so let's turn to some hobby time. Kenny, I noticed you're clipping a sprue. What you working on, buddy? What's on your desk or your floor?
In the raffle, I won Silver Tower, so I'm starting to put those together. They're
very nice.
And I can't move the screen, but there's a whole lot of Death Guard around me. Death Guard are getting unified. Finished, assembled.
Hopefully they're not actually ready to attack you now. If they're bringing their bolters to bear, like if you actually have legitimate Death Guard around you and there are moments from firing, you're probably in trouble. You don't seem like you're wearing enough armor to resist a bolter at close range.
No, I don't know if you can see. This is one of my favorite guys. I don't know why. He's obviously this is only an undercoat, but like this guy, I don't know. There's something about the combination of the gun, the mask, and this is from the Forge World 40K Death Guard. I picked up a few of the heads, not all of them, but just here and there, just some different combos. I don't know. I like that guy. So I'm working on getting all that stuff painted, and everything is at least undercoated.
That's a good step. That's a positive step. Tom was on that rotation for a while, just running for the undercoats.
It was such a bad thing.
Good. Okay, I got it.
You're gonna love that Silver Tower box set. You didn't have it previously, I assume, right?
I do not know. I have some of the characters.
It's a beautiful set.
It really is. Yes, I'm assembling. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, those Zangor are maybe some of my favorite models that they've put out in years, and I can't wait until I'm just assuming that when we get a Zine release, we're gonna have Zangors in a box. They've alluded to that previously several times on the Facebook page, and I can't wait to get another box of those guys. I think they're beautifully detailed models. They're good for competition. They're good for tabletop play. Anything like that, I love it. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't think that's I think that's common knowledge that the Zangors will come out as a box release.
Yeah. So and what's that?
I think it's okay that we say that.
Yes, exactly. It has been spoiled, as it were, many times on the Facebook page. They've been like, we don't have points for them for now. Maybe when they get a box. No, wink, wink.
They do have points for them now.
Yeah. I'm just saying that was the original joke. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Anywho, Tommy, what about yourself, buddy? What are you working on? Also, a lot of sprue cutting going on tonight.
Well,
I feel bad. I don't have any sprues around me. I'm traveling. I should bring a sprue with me just to fit in.
Always bring a sprue.
I am. I'm going back to Holy Wars in February, and I have, with the kind of the juggling point list stuff that was up in the air. In the wake of Holy Havoc, there was some discussion of whether some of the points should change. And now that they've settled back on a 1,800 point deployment, 2,500 point is your full force. I am working on my my new force that I'm going to be taking. So I'm going to take some of. I think I'm going to stick with Chaos. I'm going to take some of what I brought previously, and I'm going to expand out and kind of go a different direction with round 2.
I'm excited, Tom, most of all for you to be on the tourney treadmill. That's really great. It's pretty exciting. Like the constant treadmill of expand the army, paint the army, go to a tournament, expand a new army, paint a new army, go to a tournament. The tourney treadmill. The reason for more paint being put on more models than most anything else in the world.
I noticed because I've been overseas for a while. But when I walked in Friday night, I got there about 9:30, I think, and there were people painting. I was like, I remember this. Yep, I'm back in the night before the tournament. People painting in the hotel rooms.
Special shout out to Tom McClure, who was also there. Tom, good buddy. He was painting in the car on the way, in his lap. He had his little palette. He's in the passenger seat. He wasn't driving. He wasn't endangering anybody's life. That would really be crazy. Yes, he was in the passenger seat painting on the way there. That is some dedication right there. As for myself, I this week got back, had a lot of stuff to take care of, and I've not had near enough hobby time this week, and then I'm back on the road again, so this has been terrible. But that being said, I did manage to get my Alariel out and put together and converted in the ways that I want her converted. And I managed to begin building her base up. My Alariel is going to be a very different construction than the normal Alariels. And if you thought I was crazy with bases before, oh buddy, just wait till you get a load of this one. We've gone all the way. So yeah, it should be very fun. And I look forward to being able to plow some time into her this weekend. It should be very fun. I'm hoping to be done with her. I don't think I'll be done this weekend, but hopefully early next week. Because
there's a soundbite right there.
They'll plow some time into her. Is that what you're referencing as my soundbite?
The follow-up sentence too. But
Yes. That's maybe not exactly what I intended, but I realized after I said it, so we're just going to go with it. There you go.
To be fair, for people watching this in the future, today in the United States is a weird day.
It is.
It is.
Overseas, it's also a strange day. And yeah, breaking the fourth wall, but it is live, so we did have our election called early this morning.
Absolutely. Look, I've got an excuse. I was up till 3 a.m. and then got up early for work and then got on an airplane. I've been traveling on airplanes for like 6 hours. Come on. You got to excuse one slightly unusual phrasing. I mean, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
But let's move to happy things, which is what we did this whole weekend, which is the Holy Havoc tournament. So let's start at the beginning. Let's lay some groundwork here. I think most people who watch this channel, because we've talked about it a lot, probably know what it is. But Holy Havoc is a tournament held by Steve Herner, who is a great guy, and you should follow him on Twitter. I'll throw his Twitter down there below so you can follow, because he tweets out all the updates about the 2 tournaments he runs, which is Holy Wars, which Tom just mentioned, which happened generally in the spring-ish time or late winter, whatever. Yeah, February, March.
My birthday weekend.
There you go. And then Holy Havoc. So you can all bring presents for Tom at Holy Wars. There you go. I'm sure that's a way to pitch for gifts.
Fire Slayers. That's your gift.
There you go.
I love me some Fire Slayers.
You get to play against Fire Slayers.
Oh, I'll take it.
Holy Wars is obviously the singles tournament, and then Holy Havoc, which we just came from later in the year, which is the team tournament. Both are, and the Holy series of tournaments. Kenny, Tom, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but I don't think I'm saying anything strange when I say that it is known for being a more narrative, hobby-focused tournament where the scenarios matter a lot and the terrain is deadly as all get out and wildly impacts the game. Do you feel like that's an accurate summation?
It's pretty deadly.
Their tagline earlier on, so when Steve, I was at the first one and I couldn't go to 2 because I was in Sweden, but when we did all the interviews and everything afterwards, like on Combat Phase and on Garage Hammer, he was talking about, this is where the event where the terrain gets to play too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very true, and especially when AOS turned out and they decided, they had the vote and they decided to go towards AOS for part 2. It was just a perfect marriage. Like it's so perfect to put together those rules and AOS. Like it's such a nice combination.
Yeah, I think let's talk about, so let's dive in. We're going to just kind of pick this apart and dive through some separate elements. Then we'll do kind of a game wrap up. We're not going to go play by play, but we'll kind of give our feelings. But let's talk about the tables. My impression beforehand was that the tables were going to be amazing, and I was not let down. Steve has put so much work and effort into these tables. Each one is modeled after a particular realm. They have these big cards with descriptions with the rules, particular terrain pieces on each table. So you had like the ogre table with like the huts and the fires and the big challenge stone, and you had the realm of Sotek or whatever with the giant snake you could pray to and this big giant floating waterfall rock. Just all these amazing.
No one should have ever rolled that dice.
I disagree. That like the one person who I know rolled it and got an effect.
Yeah.
Was the perfect roll.
Yeah, it was Lord Croak. Is that one?
Yeah, who doesn't actually have wounds.
Yes.
So
I was going to do it, but I was partner with Seraphon, and we thought it might be kind of offensive. I'm going to just chat with your god. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, you don't mind, right? Yeah. So shout out to Rotor of Skull Bros who got that to trigger and brought back his Lord Croak, which I don't think there is a better model to have come back using those rules. But anywho, the tables were absolutely stunning. Now, one thing I'll say is that we all famous for being deadly. I don't think they were as deadly as they could have been, and I think that's because, as Steve said, they kind of wheeled back the deadliness a little bit right before because of the playtesting. I don't know, Kenny. Let me get a different opinion here. Kenny, how did you find? Did you feel that they were deadly, or could they have been even a little deadlier?
Oh, they could have been deadlier. I felt that they were. Oh, this might. Well, since Bits isn't around anymore, I feel like they were not quite Bits level. Because Bits would have events. They would have prizes for like who lost the most number of models in round 5 to the snowman in the center or whatever. And the Ragnarok table was the one that we were worried about, and I played on that one, and that was also the one where Eric got the destruction ability that could have destroyed the train, but they decided not to do it. But the train, I felt like it was way worse. Way deadlier in Holy Wars 1 when it was 8th edition. And so when I came to this one, I was expecting a lot more. You needed bodies. I brought basically infantry, but I was expecting to lose a lot more, and I didn't. And it was just the 5 tables I played on.
I think it was true overall, and I think that's mainly because there was some wheeling back of like the wounds the table did, but also I think because we knew we needed to bring infantry, right? And we knew we needed to have numbers. And just because that was Steve was very clear about it, right? He didn't like shock anyone and be like, "Aha, gotcha!" with these tables, right? No, he was very clear up front from the very beginning. You want bodies, you're going to need infantry. There's these going to do wounds and stuff, and it did. I'm not trying to. It wasn't a softball. I'm just saying that.
Well,
go ahead.
To be fair though, Vince, we didn't truly face down. So the way that our force was organized, most of our infantry were 2 wound models that had like anywhere between 1 and 4 ward saves against mortal wounds.
Sure.
So in general, I don't think we ever lost any models to the table ever. We put a couple of wounds on models, but I don't know that we ever lost models.
Did you guys play on the Chaos table? Because that's the one I got on game 4, and I thought would be the deadliest. But
the Zinch one?
Yeah, even then it still wasn't that bad.
Yep. Yeah, we played on the Zinch one because that one actually those pillars allowed standard armor saves, which was even worse for us because we're at like a 4-up on those, and then we got a bunch of actual the ward saves. So yeah, it just wasn't like the advice I gave Herner was I just said, so there was a Nurgle table there that the Nurgle table actually specified a D3 mortal wounds. It can't be prevented in any way. And if he wants his table killing models, that's the way that you do it.
Yep. And here's the thing. We're kind of bagging on this for a little bit, but I don't want to make anybody think that like we didn't enjoy them. The tables were fun. They were dynamic. They were scary. It's just you could play around that.
Yep. And if you had certain tools, you could get around it.
Yeah, there was a bit of inequity there.
Yeah, I brought stuff with ward saves. I only brought the infantry that had ward saves.
Right. Yeah, because you had to be 4-up across the board whenever you triggered those, basically, right?
Yeah, I had to. I got screwed in one game where the guy was smart to snipe my heroes, and I didn't come out the way I should have. So the Hearthguard lost the 4-up from being within 10 of a hero, but the Volkites only came up by 4-ups. So I tried to have everything having a 4-up.
Nice.
As much as I could. So I told the guys I don't have magic, and I don't have really good shooting, so I'll let you take those, and I'll bring infantry. And it wasn't having magic. It wasn't until game 3 I think we're like, wait a minute. Well, you can unbind, right? Maybe you should go within 18 inches of those wizards. We'll see what happens. Which just didn't even occur to us. Like, it's magic, whatever. So used to not being able to unbind, it didn't occur to me that hey, we had wizards.
I'm with you on that. It's okay. Magic to me is just like I'm okay with not having magic either. Maybe it's just it always underwhelms me, or maybe it's my inability to roll a 6. Archaon failed more castings of Mystic Shield on himself in the entire tournament than should be mathematically possible. That guy couldn't find a Mystic Shield to save his life. He doesn't know what 6 looks like on 2 dice.
Well, it would not have made a difference for our game 1. We played Hooves and the Gash and the Wartarks, and they were casting like hundreds of spells. We're like, well. All right, let us know when you're done. Let us know what happened.
Yeah, we're gonna go get a sandwich. You finish up your magic phase. All right. So overall, the tables were absolutely beautiful. I know he's working on a lot more new ones for Holy Wars, and he has said the tables are going to be even deadlier. To me, this is going to go from a solid A to an A+, and that's what I would rate it overall. Like it was an A, he's going to take it up to an A+.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would agree that the experience of the tables really met and exceeded expectations. Like,
Yeah.
I just love it. And I love the thought that there's going to be 5 additional tables at Holy Wars.
Are they expanded beyond 30 people?
I believe so. I thought, well, I mean, they would have to have at least more fun. Yeah, because they started at 30, and I think they said they're at 34 right now. They've opened it up. So yeah,
about leaving it because we after year one, you know, it's like you could add more people in, but let's not dilute the experience. So they kept it at 30. So
I think you still want to stay small.
yeah.
But and what I would say is there's already a wait list. If you want to get on the Holy Wars wait list, do so now, because as Steve mentioned, there's often people who move or are unable to go. So getting on that wait list is good. For example, with Holy Havoc, there was, you know, a couple slots open at the end, right? And people didn't sign up for the wait list, and you could have been there. You could have been there. You should have been there. All right. So let's talk about the general sort of. Here's what I want to comment. I don't know how to bracket it, but let me say it like this. This tournament, first of all, the venue was very good. We had a nice room, nice space. The hotel was good deal, all that. But the people that were there were totally awesome. Like I'll call it the community of the tournament or something. Everybody was awesome, super friendly, talking all the time, hanging out. I mean, was that Tom, Kenny, similar experience?
Yeah, we loved it. I mean,
absolutely.
And I think that small size has something to do with that, right? Like to a degree, like when you go to a 120 person tournament, it's kind of easy to sort of be lost in the mix, people to kind of click off or whatever to a point. But in this, everybody was just walking around, talking, hanging out. You know, it was unbelievably good community spirit there. Just like everybody was in a great mood all weekend, which is awesome. And that level of that sort of friendliness isn't something I've seen at every tournament I've been to. So I thought that was great. And that's a credit to both Steve, who fosters that environment, but also everybody who is there for showing up and just being cool. Right?
Yeah, it's one of the boons of like the feel of the Chicagoland area events. When you keep them small, like bringing in dinner on Saturday. So everyone's kind of like, for lunch, you know, we had an hour, half hour, we had, you know, places we could go. And that was one thing, but we would all be together for, you know, gaming and dinner on Saturday night. And playing in a small hotel like that where you can get up, I mean, like if your game one is at 10, right, and you get up at 9:45, you still can make it.
Yeah,
right.
That happened for me on one of them.
Yes, I had to go roll Tom on Sunday morning, but the poor guy was just coming off being sick, so you know, that's fair.
It's the cost of getting all my models painted. That's the cost that Father Nerdle exacts when you're working on his force.
You paint that much Nurgle, you're going to catch something. That's what happens. Everybody knows that.
It's true.
Okay. So let's kind of move and talk about kind of some game to game and our general experiences. Okay. So obviously it was 5 games over 2 days, pretty standard. 3 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. And one interesting thing to note about sort of the way that the awards were given out in this is that battle points. There's no best general in the traditional sense of that. There's a best team, which is kind of equivalent to best overall, and battle figures into that. But battle only figures into like one of the 5 categories, really. So it's the tournament really is much more hobby focused, much more narrative focused, and kind of it really does represent more the totality of the experience, right? Which I like. I mean, duh, everybody who watches this show probably knows that I'm a model whore and love painting above all else. So that, you know, to be able to participate in a tournament like that where I can get 5 awesome games against awesome people and have that kind of like fun narrative and hobby aspects be the focus, thumbs up. Like, we're dead in my wheelhouse here. So let's start out with some game one. Game one scenario was obviously kind of, we started off small. The progression of the narrative was all about this warlord we had to have, which was a separate character. We talked about it. And we talked about the warlord when we had Steve on. And in that one, he was, you know, first discovering some wonderful warpstone shards, right?
By the way, I have all the tables, images of all the tables, if you want me to pull that up as people are talking about stuff.
Maybe. but we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with Kenny. All right, so
Yeah.
Kenny, how was your game one? Give us the high level.
My opponent, or my partner and I played against Hooves and his Nagash and the Mortarks and the Morghuls, and we had 0 tools to deal with that. So I don't want that to, I don't want that to come across negative, like saying like, oh, these guys are cheesy or anything. We just couldn't deal with it. So we picked 1 or 2 models. We tried to have fun. And the highlight, I think, was the first cinematic. So did you mention Beast of War? Beast of War covered this. And on their live blog, they have...
That's a great point. I did not. Thank you.
Holy Havoc. And you can actually go back to Holy Wars, but they had Holy Havoc. And the first cinematic moment was from our first game, and that's where I went to go check with Steve about using the train, because the Volkites charged one of the Morghuls, and I thought about, like, should I do this now or wait till after 1 activation? Did an activation anyway, decided, okay, I put like 3 runes on it. Wasn't going to work. And so we were right next to Shifting Sands, so I checked to make sure it was okay. And then when I activated first, we piled in. One guy touched the Shifting Sands, and we teleported to the opposite side of the table, away from him. Now, he did follow us, to be fair, in the next round, but we didn't really have time to do a next round because none of our games, I think, got past turn 3 the entire weekend, which is a different, sounds negative, but not negative. It's a different topic. But we just had no tools, and so my Grimmath Berserker was there. Like I want to pick, not to sound racist, but kind of with the hats, they all kind of look alike to me. So he at least painted them different colors. But I kept screwing up Arkan and Neferata, and Neferata was the one I wanted to choose. And it seems always in my games when I pick my Grimwrath to target somebody, and they're clearly going to kill the hell out of my Grimwrath. They run away. They don't go towards the combat. It was kind of sad. So he was chasing Neferata, but they were coming forward and casting spells, and we just had nothing. It was one of those unique experiences where there was a variety brought to the tournament, and some people I'd never been in a scenario where you bring just War Scrolls because it's very open with the interpretation, and there were teams that brought War Scrolls, and they have lots of big and bad heroes. And somebody talked about the point differences. Like I think our team might have been maybe 2,000, 2,200 points if you put it together, but some were like 6, 7, or 4, 5, or 6,000 points when you costed them out. So there was definitely a wide range, and we had no tools to deal with Nagash and the Mortarks and the Morghuls like that all in that scenario and on the table. It was weird because so you have your scenario, and then you have 4 very different objectives you need to score those points, and then you have a layer of table on top of that.
Right.
So it's not like you can prepare. I mean, we had the scenarios ahead of time, but it's not like you can be like, okay, I'm a 10-play tournament player. I'm going to go prepare for this, and I know that I have to have a standard or 5 models. Like it was very hard to prepare for because you didn't know, and that's one of the things that was appealing to me. You didn't know, so sometimes you just got a shit match, Sure. We had the best match we could have, but we just didn't have a tool, so we decided to try and go for some fun, last stand fights. And we only really got like 1 or 2 of those in just because of time. But yeah, I had a good time.
Yeah, it's a couple. You brought up a couple of things I want to touch on. I would say in general, our games are the same. Usually 2 or 3 rounds, the most we got in.
Most games were 2 rounds. Some of them were 3.
Yeah, I think we had. I don't know if we had 3-2 and 2-3 or the other way around, but it doesn't matter. Either way, here's what I'll say. I never felt like any game wasn't action packed, regardless of that. Because I mean, that might sound like, oh my goodness, that's so you're not getting anything in, but I think that's not at all true. Because in all of our games, we were in the mix, like top of 1, right? Like
top 1.
We had stuff
as soon as
happening
we activated
immediately. The mix was in, and it just made for like 2. Even if we only had 2 rounds, it was 2 intense, battle furious, just like tactical rounds. And your comment about the points difference certainly true about the scrolls. Like I'll openly admit, Tom and I may have had like the filthiest points total there. We totaled it up and we were somewhere over 6,300 points. So compared to some people who might have been around 2,000. Now, that being said, let's return to what I said at the beginning. 1, battle points were a much smaller part of this overall. And 2, as you mentioned, killing didn't really matter that much, right? It was the ability to achieve your objectives. And
Yep.
so in game one, as a simple explanation of this, you might think, oh my goodness, you have 2,000 points against 6,000 points. It's going to be just a steamrolling. It wasn't. It really wasn't, because you just, one, things don't die that fast. And two, it's not about that. It's about the objectives, right? And so our game one, we rolled up against Nick Fensky and Ron, his partner. And it was great. They were awesome. They were rocking a big Flesh Eater Quartz army. And we played on that Sotek board, which was all full of jungles and stuff.
And which was a problem for our force, because we had lots of big old monsters. Like,
and nowhere to land them.
And nowhere to land them. Vince spent most of the match with Archeon just sitting around watching the battle, because he couldn't put him into combat because there was nowhere to land him on a charge.
Right.
You played against Nick and Lou?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lou. Sorry, what I say? I apologize,
Yeah.
Lou. I'm sorry, I got your name wrong.
Yes.
I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm just going off memory.
Yes,
Nick and Lou.
Lou.
Yeah, thank you.
I was telling you beforehand, and I'm editing our combat phase episode about this, and I'm not gonna go back and add it in, but I realized I didn't come across, like, there's a message I didn't get across. I'm gonna put it here though, because it sounds bad if you say you only got 2 or 3 turns, and it wasn't that. If somebody's like, there were some games where by the time it took forever to set up and to figure out, read the thing and say this is this objective, and that's, now that's I'm not complaining, but there were some games where turn 2 and other games are over already, and that the default might be like, okay, I got a table, I already lost, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily that's what happened. There were concessions, or somebody just didn't bring a good variety and they couldn't achieve any of the objectives and they stopped. So it wasn't necessarily like somebody got steamrolled horribly and the game was over quickly. There were different things about that, because it's such a very diverse group of objectives, and some people just stopped because they couldn't get them.
And people didn't have. We built lists before we knew what the objectives were.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we just didn't know. So Vince had talked about how cramped that first board was. Here's an example. This is our first match on that board.
It's not. Oh, there you go. Now it's showing.
So this is like deep into turn 2, I think, where I think they got a double turn, maybe. I don't remember. They went. No, it was. So we went a second time. So this is a top of 2, and we've lost a bunch of stuff at this point. We're getting ready to go on our second turn. And you can see that, like, Archeon's just sitting around, because there's nowhere where we can put that pie plate of a base. Or there's just not a lot of options. Yeah, it was cramped. I mean, it was good, and this is probably the most cramped board that was there, but it was good.
It's a bad table for you guys.
No, but that's the point, though.
Yep.
Like, if you bring a bunch of monsters, you get punished because you can't bring all of that force to bear.
Right. It's a good thing. Like this, they had, like, you look at Nick's force and look at all the ghouls and the cryptors. Look at how easy they just flow through everything and got around us, right? It was fantastic. And this game ended up 2-2, right? It was awesome. This was a wonderful first game for the tournament. So right there, like, yeah, I'm sure we outpoints them, but we ended in a draw because they managed to get on the objectives and make the things happen, right? And was that easy.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely, it's fantastic. Great first game, and well played, Nick and Lou. All right, Tom, did you have any other thoughts on the first game you wanted to share?
No, I mean, it was a great introduction. Nick and Lou were fantastic opponents, and I really felt like the tables were doing what they were supposed to, because the forces weren't inherently balanced. The tables were what brought the balance.
The tables plus the scenarios made a balanced situation. Yep, absolutely.
I agree, and I really we really felt the size of our force in that first game, and that's good. I mean, that's a sign that we were having to make hard decisions. That's a sign that it was balanced.
You played Flesh Eater Quartz too, right? So you had a lot of bodies versus your not so many bodies.
Exactly.
Correct. Yep. All in all, it was a very fun matchup, and congrats to Nick and Lou, who ended up taking what was it, best sports, right? They took the best sportsman award. So and well deserved by 2 awesome gentlemen. All right, let's move on. So game 2, Kenny, what'd your game 2 look like?
Oh god, I'm blanking for a second. Our game 2. Oh, this was the I think this was the Sotec board. Yeah, we played against Alex and John, I want to say.
Yeah, because you were right behind us, game 2.
Yeah, we swapped. So you were on Shifted Sands, and we were on the Sotec table.
Yes.
They had a lot of dark elves, and then it was another order army. A lot of dark elves, a lot of shooting stuff. He had I think a couple of adjudicators, but he had the war altar and like 30 flagellants, which was awesome to see flagellants. And they had a pretty good army. And oh, great! I can always mute that.
Don't worry about it.
All right. Yeah, she's stupid. It was a good army. We had a lot of fun playing with it, but we just had to kind of like, we're going to get shot. So I had a lot of my stuff tunneled, and I had to come up and just try to tie things up. And we did. We got some progress, but it was a tough match for us. But we did earn some. I think we finally got a point in that one with objective wise, but we just had to kind of spread out. But it was another very good army. It was a high model count, lots of shooting. It could go into combat, and it was also just stuff that you don't see very often on the table. So it was just a delight to see it. So yeah, that was a fun one too. Yeah, we lost. I don't know if they got 1 or 2 points, but it was definitely an enjoyable game. And the only down things, I really had hoped that we would have gotten a chance to have the flagellants and the war altar like charge into combat and see that. We had a big combat in the middle with his Colwood Knights and a Hydra, I think some Dark Shards, fought a bunch of Saurus and another hero. But the flagellants, they just didn't get to play, and I was hoping to see that. So that was my bummer, I think, really.
It was awesome to see. I saw that army there. We didn't get a chance to play it, but there was so many flagellants. Oh my god, it was crazy. I loved seeing it. That was awesome. And yeah, they really did have bodies. Like, you aren't kidding on that one. Like that team brought bodies just to throw at things, which was extremely valuable in this tournament, right? Numbers had their own unique value. I don't care what it said on the scroll. Like, just having numbers was often a huge value in and of itself. So our game 2 was probably the roughest game because it was fairly mismatched in that we played Rotor and his partner we played from the guys from Skull Bros. Chris. And what's that?
Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. Again, I don't have notes, so I apologize if I mess up anybody's name. I'm sorry. Forgive me. But they were super cool dudes. Unfortunately, like, they had brought a beautiful combination of Stormcast and Lizardmen. They won best. They did, exactly. Yes. When I say beautiful, I really mean it. Like, their army was gorgeous and well displayed and absolutely stunning. And so as the best appearance award proved. So congrats to them for that. And even bigger congrats to Chris, who had a gorgeous looking Stormcast force that was quite large that he painted in 2 months. So I want to give a special shout out to that dude for that. That's crazy awesome. So, like, when you look at it, you're like, 2-month paint job? No, that doesn't make sense. Like, so, but in the end, they had Lord Croak, and they could put him on a Balewind Vortex and stuff, which was, which is certainly very powerful. But that being said, we just had more tools to deal with. This was a scenario Tom and I already knew from the beginning. We had, like, huge advantages in because we had talked through it. And, like, you had to get a bunch of stones off the other side of the table. We had a model that could teleport. So we just gave them all to that model and teleported him over and blocked him off the board, basically, by, on a double turn. So, like, we just achieved that objective for free. There's nothing they could do about it, which, it is what it is. We had the right tools for this one, and they didn't to stop us. Like, Lord Croak went up on the Balewind, and we just hell cannoned him right off of it because that's the kind of horrible people we are.
It's true. We are pretty terrible people.
Right.
I mean, and not only that, like, deployment, I came with like a deployment sheet because I was very like rigid to Vince, like, we have to deploy this way. And I literally strung out our block of 30 Chaos Warriors with 1 inch apiece between each model, the entire length of the board.
Yeah.
To hold the line so that nothing could get by the line for to get their crystals off the other side of the board.
Right. So we had the great green wall of Nurgle that, of course, because they were strung along the whole length of the board, they also were touching any hero that could possibly provide a buff, right? No matter where they were.
Yeah, all the aura buffs.
Yep. So all the aura buffs were triggering on them. It wasn't a great scenario for the scenario itself was already against their forces, being that they had a lot of foot sloggers that would have to carry those tokens across very slowly. And then, we had all these other advantages. So not the most fun game for them, but they were super good sports about it. They were cool dudes the whole time. It was a quick game.
Yep.
There's that. There you go.
Here's just a quick shot of I think this is right after our first turn. So you can see the deployment with all the aura stacking and stuff like that, and it got pretty ugly pretty quickly.
You can see the wall of special character advancing in front of our line with Archaon leading the charge there, and then your Nurgle posse rolling up on the in the bottom, and then Thanquil back in the back just spraying dudes with Warflame.
And then Scarbrand in the far back.
On the far side. Oh, that's a bunch of filth. Oh God, we're bad human beings. All right. But as I said, it was they were super cool dudes, and congratulations to them for best appearance. There you go. They earned it. Okay. Let's talk game 3. Oh, geez.
Is that me?
Yes. There you go. All right, Kenny. So your game 3, man. How did you close out your Saturday?
So we had the privilege of playing against Eric and Davey from Mortal Realms podcast. That is still my gaming group, my local. I mean, even down in South Carolina temporarily, that's still my gaming group. So it was fun to play against them. We had prepared for Eric and I when I was in Madison a couple weeks ago. We play tested that scenario just by chance. On a different board, obviously. So Davey had the Cunning Ruck thing, and I don't know if I can't remember if they gave us first turn or if we went first, but I think they gave us first turn. But they're not expecting. We were not expecting what happened. But the Chameleon Skinks all popped up and killed the guy, the boss that gave Cunning Ruck his ridiculous 300 shots, whatever.
Yeah, all right, Chameleon Assassins.
Yeah, and he took out one of the prophets. One of the wizards had. We took 5 of the 6 ones off. And I was just trying to bring that guy down with like Volkites popping up around the big train piece was the Idol of Gork there, or Gork or Gork on the one side, and he had the big ogre characters that way, but they didn't know where the Volkites were going to pop up, and the Hearthguard were coming on through Call to War into 2 separate units of 10, but they both, they had the 4 board save, and they had the mortal wounds, the dealing the mortal wounds, and that's still why it would, obviously make the models however you want, but I always take the mortal wound possibility over the product of those 2 wounds because they're going to save it and you're going to do no wounds. But in this case, you have a good chance of doing mortal wounds, even if you roll like me. So that was totally worth it. And we put a lot of pain on the ogres there. That one we actually did win. I don't know how much. I left kind of my partner was more of like in charge of paperwork and the crystals and things like that.
I see you're a man after my own heart, because I would just like throw the stuff at Tom at the end of every game and be like, you do this, and then like paperwork, go.
There's like, yeah, well, even at the end of the game, I had taken stuff up, and then I was like, where's our stuff? Like, I don't know my part. Like, did you want? Cause honestly, the game then, like, I don't know if we won. I don't really find out did we win? Did we get any points? What was supposed to happen? Like, I mean, it was just it was so vast. It was so diverse. Like the goals were so far apart that we in the beginning you look at it and you say, okay, we're going to try and get these points, but by turn 2, sometimes it's just gone. So we're just kind of caught up in the moment. That was a very fun game. But yeah, getting rid of the boss that gave the Cunning Ruck its crazy shooting advantage was huge. So that's the one time I played it, and we were very fortunate that we didn't get to kind of feel its wrath. But it was a lot of bodies, and we had a lot of bodies too. And I think I want to say that one is where he summoned on the Pterodons did not perform the way the Rhipidactyls did not perform the way they did in Game 2, where they were actually like rolling tons and tons of dice. they really only seem to work in game 2. But I think he gets summoned on most of the Saurus, and we were trying to do big block versus big block. So the monsters were fighting over. He had the Dread Maul that came up, and it was the Bastillodon was our guy, and the monsters were fighting over by the Warp Stone thing on the right side of the table. And the left side, we had 2 Thunder Tusk guys and a Hunter and a unit of Iron Guts, or whatever they're called now. I think they're still called Iron Guts, with the double-handed weapons, fighting a bunch of Slayers. And the Slayers did eventually pop up, and I think that was another one where I failed my charge on turn 1, or a turn that they popped up. There's sometimes where they pop up and they charge, and it's spectacular.
Right.
I think I used the tournament reroll, like the game rerolls. I want to say most of them were used for that, but there were 1 or 2 that I used for the Fire Slayer, the Grimwrath trying to get a second attack. Because I usually, they have a lot of potential, but I usually roll really crappy, and that's where I get kind of stuck if there are not any buffs on them. So I try to use mine for cinematic moments, but I feel like the fight, them popping up and trying to charge is pretty a legit moment, cinematic moment to use a reroll. So I didn't get the charge, but the threat of those guys popping up was a big deal because they didn't know where. And we're kind of like, oh, maybe go over here, but they go over here, they could also kill these characters. And so there were 2 very big points where I could come up and make a big difference. And actually 3 if you think about the monsters, because if you kill that monster, then he can't rack up any more damage.
Right.
Taking that one. So that was a fun game. We did win that one, but I feel like if we had not assassinated that character and almost killed the other character early on, that could have been very, very different for us.
Mm-hmm.
The power of chameleons. I love it. That's
the one also where Eric rolled. I mean, so they were going through flukes, right? That happened in these games, and like at game 5, it happened where we thought about ambushing and tunneling, and they made a ruling which I agreed on, where you just roll a d6 on. It's random where they come up, and that's something that they know for next year. But the Destruction General's Handbook thing, he rolled just by a fluke. The thing lets him destroy a piece of terrain, and so we were on the Ragnarok table, and he wanted to destroy that. And at first, it was okay, but then I think it became a little more vocal and known. And Steve turned, and that this is not anything bad, but he turned around and was like, "No, actually, you're not going to do that. You're not going to destroy that," which I think is fair because you make a scenario. And you don't want that to be turned off. We said on comment phase yesterday, like that's like imagine the end times where the Teclis is pulled the bathtub plug, the big whirlwind around Ulthuan, and you have the great mail of the vortex, and the world is ending, but one high elf Silverhelm can come up and go, oh, let me just plug that hole. Okay, well
right.
Yeah.
No danger anymore. So yeah, I can see where that they would decide that was not going to work. But yeah, it was just kind of a neat moment that came up, and he actually didn't use it to destroy anything else. I think we just sort of let it go.
It's the same. I am somewhat sad that he didn't destroy other stuff. I think at the end, anybody who played on that table did have a unique hatred for that freaking spider. That's for sure.
It really didn't do much in our game at all.
Oh wow! And we played our test game on that, like our practice game with Hooves on Friday. That thing was just so much damage, just everywhere, just every round. So many dice.
Yeah, so much rolling. Because
Yes.
it would like distance, and then you'd check to see if it did wounds, and if it did wounds, how many wounds did it do? And then if you had any defenses, then you'd have to roll all your defenses for each unit.
I think I don't know if it even touched my units. I had the hair save,
Sure.
Award save, hair save.
I got it. I know what you meant. I picked on it. But the Mohawk save. I'm down.
Mohawk, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenon.
Absolutely. All right. So Tom, you want to take our game 3, the mirror match?
The mirror match. So we were on the great table of Tzeentch, in the realm of Tzeentch, and so what was so fantastic about this was that this was our mirror army. Like we stared down somebody that basically brought a list almost identical to our own. And these individuals ended up actually winning best team overall. And so we ended up staring down a very similar list in ours. They had basically a mix of chaos with heavy Nurgle. They went demons where we went mortal. And by the end of it, they had actually said to us that they think that our list was more finely tuned and kind of better put together than than what they had put together. So it was a huge compliment that we received from them. But yeah, it was a great game. It was our favorite for the day. And it was quite the experience. We got to shove Archeon into Archeon and let him duke it out to see who was the true Archeon. So Vince's Faceless of Tzeentch Archeon slayed the imposter on the table of Tzeentch, which was only appropriate. The other thing I pointed out was you can actually see, like, our models are a lot brighter than theirs. Like, we just use different colors. And so, like, it was just funny. Like, you can see their Archeon is a much darker, kind of, like, muted Archeon. You can see their Glotkin in the back right. Their Glotkin is just a lot more muted than kind of our, like, volatile, like, scorpion green Glotkin. And so it was, like, truly, like, they were a dark, like, mere reflection of our own forces.
Yeah.
And it was, and we had a blast. It was, I mean, both of us were just running as filthy as you can get lists. We had double Hell Cannon, they had double Hell Cannon, and they had double Skull Cannon. They were running Kairos. We were running, like, quadruple ward saves on our Chaos Warriors. Like, it was filthy, 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 filthy.
Well, it's really funny to point out the mirror here, because you can see the two Archaons staring each other down in the center of the table by the Eye of Tzeentch. But as you look down, as you pointed out, you got the two Glockins. Yep. I like how in the lower part of the table,
the two Magath Lords.
Yeah, the two Magath Lords staring each other down. Yeah, like it's the two Chaos Warrior blocks staring back and forth at each other across the Eye of Tzeentch.
Yep. It was really like a fairly significant mirror. Obviously, like, we had the War Shrines. They weren't running War Shrines because they weren't running Mortals. So it was an interesting scenario because you assigned to one unit a token, and that unit had to do as much damage as possible, and it got +1 attack to its profile. And they, interestingly enough, chose the Plague Drones, which I thought, well, that's kind of weird because, like, those just aren't high damage units. Like, they have a bunch of attacks, so each model's gaining 4 attacks by that +1, but they just weren't real high damage. We went the other direction. We went full on glass cannon. And so we gave it to one of our Hell Cannons, the token, and we actually gave it to one of the Hell Cannons that was starting off the table. And so we brought, like, at the top of our turn, we called to war, brought the Hell Cannon on, and then meted out, like, 3 Hell Cannon shots of, like, 18 wounds or so, or not 18 wounds. It was probably, like, 11 wounds is, I think, what we started out with round 1. And then it just got grosser from that point on.
Yeah, because if a Hell Cannon firing twice isn't filthy enough with just doing 2d6 mortal wounds, why not have it fire 3 times? Just all the way, sure. But yes, this was a really great game. And as you said, they ended up taking the best team.
And this game we went 1-1.
1-1. And by the way, keep in mind there are 4 potential points you can get here from the objectives. This ended 1-1. Why did it end 1-1? Because we murdered each other's ability to complete the other objectives. Like, neither team could complete the other objectives, not for lack of trying, but because we had killed all the potential people who could achieve it. It was just a murder fest. Oh, it was gross. And I loved it. It was fantastic. This, yes, I killed his Archaon. Like, let me point out here, this is the game where the imposter was slain at my feet, okay? But you can see him there in the center here. But notice the Vermin Lord off to his side, like off of Archaon's head, and where Archaon's positioned, and then my Scarbrand is also hidden in there somewhere. Well, their Scarbrand is not that far away. And what ended up happening is they double turned us, and their Scarbrand came in, and in the span of that double turn, spiked the Vermin Lord, our Warlord, and Archaon into the ground.
Yep.
And we shot the Scar, and then the Sword Fiends just machine gunned the Scarbrand. An important piece of revenge. But yes, this was a bloodbath and an awesome game. Like, the amount of action that happened in this game is ridiculous for it to end 1-1. And I don't think anybody was sad about that. This was such a well-fought game.
Yeah, it was, and everybody played great, and, like, and it just showed me how tactical this game actually is. Because there was so much just very small micro movements, calling troops in from Call War at just the right time, that just made huge differences. like pieces had to be removed off the table in the right order in order for you to make progress. And so we had to remove Kairos first, and then yada, 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 and then remove the hell cannons. And yeah, it was just it felt more like a chess match than anything I've ever played in Warhammer.
Yep.
Yeah, it was quite the game. And these guys played a great game. Like I said, we tied them for best team or best overall. And they actually ended up going to the third category down. Which in fact involved not only objective points, the third category, but also like sportsmanship points, which we gave them a sportsmanship point from this game. So I think we probably gave them what they needed to beat us to take the best overall because of that point we gave them from this game.
Which is totally worth it. That's good.
It was totally
happy for that. It
was a great game. Yeah.
I got to point out something about your picture you have up here right now. In the back of the picture on the white table, and that was a very nice table to play on because you had like a white table to set up on both sides of that one. There are vials of very colorful liquids that you had with you, and because I know they popped up on the Beast of War, but do you want to explain what those are?
Yeah, so I made, we had kind of talked about it on the show, like I made a bunch of specialized drinks. Some of them were mixed drinks, some of them were just stuff out of the bottle. And so we had like the beige one you see there, it was Molder's Milk. And then we had Slanesh's Delight, which is the pink one right next to it. Zinch's Warp Fire, which is that bluish green one.
Oh, that was good.
In the foreground, and then in the background, there was Blood for the Blood God, Nurgle's Rot, and then Gift of the Everchosen. A lot of people took shots of them, and whenever anybody wanted to do a drink, I did a drink with them, and we had a beast of a time. So,
absolutely, we felt like it was the least we could do. If we were bringing this horrible wretched filth, we at least deserve to also bring some alcohol for our opponents too. That's only fair.
Yeah, I knew about that
earlier. Well, Kenny, are you going to be there for Holy Wars?
I should be. I'm on the list.
Wonderful. Well, I will likely have those next time as well. So worry not. You can stop by and we'll throw back a drink or two.
Excellent.
And that goes for everybody who's going to be there. There you go.
Distracted by your are you in New England? Your hotel room. I'm looking at like the bed and.
How did you know? Yes, I am in New England.
Really? Because they had that kind of.
What an accurate call. That is correct. Yes, I am. All right. So
solved.
There you go. Game 4. So game 4, obviously. So we had a nice night, as you mentioned. Like Steve brought in pizza for everybody that night, Saturday night. We were all just hanging out, talking. It was a great time. Yep, there was some Blood Bowl, thanks to Mr. Kenny, who shared some Blood Bowl demos of people, which was very cool. I was impressed. I have to agree with you that the orc players would be awesome Ard boys. As a matter of fact, I think they would look great in that role, and it'd be great to have some sweet plastic Ard boys. So that was a great night, and then we sat around talking about the tournament and experiences so far with Steve and everybody. Everybody was super cool. Sunday morning, game 4. What was your game 4 in the morning there, Kenny?
This was against an Empire army, an entire Empire army. And I'm going to find the name real quick. I think it was Mike and Shane. They brought a Hurricaneum, a Luminarch, a bunch of Knights, handgunners, Karl Franz on a Griffin and 2 other Griffin. There's an Amber Wizard on a Griffin and a Hero on a Griffin, and a bunch of other stuff. It was on the Zinch table, and we had a great time. I wasn't sure about trying to be diplomatic. The team had one guy that was new to AOS, and another guy who was really excited about everything. But I don't know if the other guy was so it was new to him, so it was very different in the way the game's played and everything. And I feel like he was getting better acclimated as the weekend went on. But it's a rough spot to be in if you're brand new to a game. The scenarios are so far out.
Right. Right.
And like what you pick is not really a good representation of what your army would normally be like in play. So we tried to just it was game 4. Like we're not getting anything. We want to just have some fun fights. We just roll some dice, push some stuff around, roll some dice. They want to do that too. They were, I think, more concerned about tactics and getting points than we were. But I just wanted to try and like get Carl Franz. I wanted to fight Carl Franz with the Grimwrath. Then the Luminarch shot him off. So I'm like, well, that's of course it's his own team doing it, so they had to kind of they let them deal with that afterwards. So I wasn't able to really provide the fight that I hoped to give them. But the Volkites tunneled up and went after the two, like the Amber Wizard on Griffin, like took him down, and there was a big fight over there in the corner. But nobody quite went under the floating rock. Like there was a plastic, like nobody actually went under that. So we figured out that we weren't doing that wrong. But there was people in the middle, but we did not really take damage from the different pillars of Tzeentch. We rolled, but it didn't really dish out a lot of damage in our game.
No, it didn't. That same table, it's funny because it has those big patches on the table were deadly terrain, right? So if you move in it, you roll a 1, you lose the model. I just heedlessly threw Thankful right into that. And that's like a character model, and they're like, you're in deadly terrain. I was like, yeah, it's fine. Roll there. He's fine. He's going to charge. I'll have to roll again. I know. He's fine. Boom. Roll the dice. He's fine. See, Thankful's not afraid. Get this deadly terrain out of here. No, it's nothing.
Guys in there. Oh, they had double stanks. They had, and at the end, they needed to get the final point. So they had, I think it was Carl Franz, one of the steam tanks, and a unit of riders. They had to cross the terrain. They rolled. They lived. It's only on a 1.
Yeah, sure.
They were able to get this 1 point at the end. So I think that was 2-1. It would have been a 1-1, but at the end, we're like, okay, you guys, we have 5 minutes left in the game. You can still get a point if you do this, this, and this. So let's just only do that. And that's what they wanted to do, and made sense.
Yeah, sure.
They were more. I think points would be great, but that's not what we were going for. So if they had set something up to get a point, then they absolutely should. Why not? We had the fight we wanted. They can get this objective at the end. There's no reason they have to. We have like only a few minutes left to play. There's no reason why they shouldn't get this one objective. So just move you guys over there, and boom, we're done.
There you go. I like it.
Cool to see Empire on the table. Just don't see a lot of Empire.
Yeah, It's so funny you say that because again, like I understand my experiences and my own personal meta are different, but I see Empire on the table every weekend, so it's not a weird thing for me.
Yeah, Empire.
Oh, Hurricanums and cannons and steam tanks. Oh my, we call that Vinny's regular Saturday experience. So, yep.
True.
So our game 4 was against the other Archaon. There were 3 Archaons at the tournament. One we brought, one we killed in game 3, and then the third one. And I had during this game, I had basically like that night I knew like they put up the pairings for round 4 the next morning. So I had called out their Archaon earlier. This is Joe and Marv. Is that right?
Yeah, Marv. Yep.
Okay. And so Marv had the there you go. So we were on the collegiate arcane table, the Empire Town, and you can see his Archaon hiding in the corner, shaking his butt at my Archaon, taunting me. I called him out that he would be dead. Sadly, at the end of the game, he was wounded, but still alive. We were not able to execute him. I was very sad about that.
Well, that's what happens when you hide in the corner all game.
Zing. Next year, if he shows up again, I'm not bringing Archaon again anytime. So, but that's okay. Joe and Marv were awesome. This was a super fun, like very, very tactical game. Like a big shout out to Joe, who pulled a brilliant tactic to achieve one of the points, where he had Archaon summon. Like one of the goals was to get people off of a rally point, which they had randomly rolled to be like the far top corner in this picture, so to the left side of our board, right? You had to get it off. You had to get it off the enemy side of the table, but off a very particular point on the enemy side of the table. And we didn't have a great way to do that, to get our units all across there. So they had Archaon kind of jump forward a little bit, summon a big group of pink horrors at like 18 inches out or whatever. And then that group of pink horrors summoned another group of pink horrors on the rally point. And then they walked off the table and got that objective. And I was like, holy crap. It was so brilliant. And
yeah,
I
it was
like,
all in the same phase. And it was just genius. Yeah.
Yeah, did not see that coming. And I was like, well, they've got that point. Nothing to do about that. So all in all, this was another one of those like brutal games. He had Joe had a bunch of awesome like conversions of juggernauts, of blood crushers, or sorry, skull crushers. I apologize. Skull crushers converted to be Zinchi skull crushers, which you can kind of see them. They're all blue and such. And he had them as like the Lords of Corn, which he had converted over and put these faceless masks on and had them like holding back their juggernauts like dogs, which was just really cool. Great army, cool conversions all around. Again, this was a lot of fun. And this was another one of those like very brutal games. A lot of death. Glotkin got into it. We had just like a lot of fun fighting back and forth. And this ended again 2-2. And I felt like it was just 2 solid turns of face smashing and tactics and brilliant plays. It was again just an absolutely fantastic game.
Yep. It was excellent.
It really was. Although,
and Scarbrand won the most useless model award for this game. You see where she's at? She basically stayed there the entire game.
More or less. She did nothing. Yep, she was pointless. And all the team Scarbrand, because they have one too, you can see over there, just was worthless. Scarbrands, multiple, plural, did nothing in this game. It was a worthless model. It was a swingy model.
Good paint job.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really cool looking Scarbrand. Like again, brought into that Zinchi color scheme. It was a very cool looking force. Tom, any other thoughts that I missed on this game?
No, I mean I would say that yeah, I mean it was just a good game overall. Like man, it was just a great game. I felt kind of bad for him because, like I'd said, we had given them, like, we took turn 1, and it was a
no, they took turn 1, Tom. We took turn 1. So yeah, we went first. You're right, and then they went and they got the double turn.
Right, and then they got the double turn. This was the game where, like, we talked about how they had said that one of them, Marv had made the comment that you couldn't actually win after that, or it was nigh impossible. And we assassinated at the top of 1 Scarbrand, the Warlord, and Sail. Yeah. So basically, all of their utility tools were taken off the table at the top of 1. And so I felt for him because we really kind of gutted the legs out from underneath their army.
Which you can see, by the way, part of the secret to that was if you look in the right side of the picture and against the back of the board, you'll notice that's little Thankful hanging out there. That's not their Thankful. That's our Thankful. Suicide Thankful, deep behind enemy lines once again.
Yep.
That guy, he loved going deep. He was all about it.
Like, yeah, he got skitter leaped back there. If you look in the bottom right corner, you see that our Storm Fiends have popped up on their Warlord and on Sail. Both Hell Cannons are on the table. You can see them in the back left of ours, which are picking out their those soft targets. Or those strategic targets. And then what the icing on the cake was I moved Glotkin up and was able to get the charge on these corn juggernauts. And what ended up happening was, like, I took the charge away from them, and I got them in a bottleneck where, like, Glotkin filled up the whole thing. So they're like, he couldn't even get his Juggerlord into combat.
Right.
So it was just a brutal, like, kind of 1-2 at the top of 1.
Makes me
go ahead, Kenny.
Like, it makes me wish I'd played Chaos. Like, I'm looking at the games and I'm listening to the podcast. Like, Chaos has like the greatest toys. They have a lot. And with this one, you just bring War Scrolls. Like, there's a lot. The Chaos is very deadly, but they seem like they're very exciting because there's so many things you can do with the models.
There's so many weird, fun utility.
That's why I need to get a non-order army. So the War Hurts, I don't think will be too crazy, so maybe just wait for a Slanesh.
Yeah, Slanesh would have been insane. Vince and I were talking about this because, like, in the top of 1, you could clear the whole board, like, from movement wise. Like, that would.
Yep, Slanesh would have ruled this tournament. There was 0 Slanesh models at the tournament, which is ironic because a Slanesh player could have taken the whole thing. Like,
Yep.
double team Slanesh would have been unbeatable. It's ridiculous.
Because
Their
all
scrolls are
these like
so
mobility
terrible.
things, yeah, like they could have been off at the top of one or to the actual like strategic points.
Yep.
Just because of their high mobility.
That movement game. Their movement game is on fleek. I can say that, right? That's the thing. All right. So let's talk about game 5, closing out the tournament. Kenny, how was your game 5?
People asked what the one table, if you could pick a table, what do you want to play on? And I said the dark elf table, which I think I did play on Holy Wars 1. But it was this cool shrine of Cain in the middle, and they had carved out these faces, and I really like that piece, that board. And that's what we played on, and we played against Dom and Dan. And they had a combination of Skaven and Bloodbound, I think. That one again, so we made it very clear, like, we're not getting any points. Like, we don't care about points. We want to have some cinematic fights. That's it. And even as we started talking about it, like, no. If you guys want to get points, that's fine. We don't want to get points. Here, you can even have the points. There you go. We want to get some action out of the last game. And I think that one only went through round 2. I'm not sure if we got round 3 in that one, and which was a little bit more disappointing because that one was a better match for us. Just in the fact that there were more bodies, and there was more action to be had, like actual connection and dice rolling and fights. But we just didn't have time to get too far into that one. So that's really all I wanted to do. Is like, I don't care. Like, it's our turn. I'm not going to move this guy. I'm not going to move this guy. Let's just go straight to this and let's just fight. I'm trying to think of anything really memorable from that match. We had a Vermin Lord, ski leap around. I think the Volkites came up and tunneled up near him and attacked on the one side. No, because it was random, that one. It was when you would tunnel up or ambush, it was D6 because there was D3. It was a D3 on your side for setup. And a lot of my stuff went to the boring. It's like there was almost somewhere in 8th edition where this would happen, where you'd come up. It was like the dawn of war or whatever.
Yep.
You come up, you're like you're groggy, like, oh, am I gonna which third of the table am I gonna be on? So with my army being 7 or 8 drops being tunneled, it was random. So the Magma Droth and the Rune Smiter was the first thing to come up on turn 1, and it was in a safe spot. But it was also probably the worst spot for me because it just couldn't do anything. I had to just be able to move it enough to be able to be within 15 inches to do like the bulimic magma vomit thing on this one unit, and roll D3 mortal wounds. I got one. But then when the Volkites came up, they came up with the back corner, which was potentially really nice. But then, my front corner. But the battle had moved by that point. So I had to roll really high, and I think that was the turn I finally made the charge, and there was a big combat. But then I wiped out, let's say it was the Juggernauts, and I was about to wipe them out, but see, this is where me as a fluff player, right? It's hard to say this word. They retreated. I mean, yeah, tactically, okay, fine, but Khorne bloodbound, and they retreated from Fire Slayers, so. That was a shame, but we got to have some more fights. The Vermin Lord was definitely a prize I wanted. It was a fight I wanted to have, but he moved around where he could do some good, and so that was nice. And I think the Salon did a little bit more this time as far as buffing things. And the Bastildon had a good shot, and we shot off the Doom Wheels pretty quickly. And I think I hit. Oh yeah, because this is the last game, and our general. Was the path of the ballistic one, and he was
Yep.
So like he shot off one Doom Wheel. The Bastildon shot off a Doom Wheel. I think the Magma Droth like puked off one of the units, and then the Volkites and the Hearthguard had come on, and there was a fight on one side, but the Volkites came up and they attacked, and they wiped out a couple models just by volume of attack. And again, re-rolling hits. I know some people like the on-paper look of shields and the chance of doing a more wound on a 6 on a charge. Of course, the shield really is better if you are, not doing the charging, but whatever. But yes, the doubles was great. So re-rolling the hits, and then when I could get the Rune Smiter up early, I was trying to go up early on, so I had a turn and a hero phase to be able to give them re-roll to wounds. And when re-rolling hits and re-rolling wounding, they were like, that was pretty brutal. And having a 4 board save initially, and then a 5 up hair save was pretty brutal. So that was like the best game I think I actually had to kind of come in and grind. And I love Fire Slayers versus Bloodbound, because you have there's tons of carnage, and you have this whole kind of fun yo-yo back and forth of I kill you and then you death blow me and then you kill me and I death blow you, and you just kind of back and forth, and
Nice.
it's always a ton of fun. And so I just went right for the I don't know if they're Wrathmongers, the ones that have the flails.
Yeah, the Wrathmongers. A lot of Wrathmongers at this tournament.
Yeah, but we just beelined right for that and try to get into melee combat. And it wasn't necessarily a good melee combat, it was just combat. I really want to roll some dice and just have some big fights. And so that's what we did. We did not care about points. It came a few times, and like we had 30 minutes left. Like, I don't care whatsoever. Just screw that, but let's get that guy into combat with that guy. And at the end, we were picking fights of rolling. Like, we have 10 minutes left. Let's roll this combat and let's roll that combat. But we just were skipping things because we wanted to have a little bit more action. But yeah, it was a fun game at the end too. And it was interesting. So when I asked them too, I always ask people, like, do you want to take pictures for this? And to put on Twitter and talk about on the podcast. And it turns out that they were listening to the show on the way up, and so they were like, the point where you're meeting somebody and there's that like, you sound familiar to me, and so they gave their permission. But like, yeah, we're just listening to your episode on Blood Bowl as we were driving up here. I'm like, oh, it's so nice.
That's awesome.
I was like, yay! Nice and fluffy gamers. All right, good thing they didn't meet Robert. Robert's cheating.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. I love it, and I love the focus on just like, yeah, the points, whatever. Let's smash some face here. Come on, people, it's game 5. Get into it.
I think he picked up the scenario at one point. Like, no, just put that down. I don't care.
None of that matters anymore. Only death. Awesome. Our game 5 was like, I've talked about how good some of these games are, and I really want to reinforce that when I say the following. Our game 5 may have been my favorite game. In fact, this was my favorite game. So this was against Tom, help me out here, Walter and Pat? Is that right?
Yes, maybe.
Okay. If I got one of your two names wrong, I'm very sorry. But I'm going to say Walter and Pat.
I got this. Yeah, Pat Brindleton.
Okay, awesome. Yay. All this is off the top of my head, by the way, folks. So there you go. How about that?
He's often a favorite for sports. He wins a lot of sports awards.
These two dudes were fantastic. Like, I totally buy that for the sports awards. These guys were awesome. So, quick explanation of what's going on here. As Kenny mentioned, you got a random deployment. You just take a unit. Where that unit goes, D3 on your side. So it is exactly what you described. You end up with like random stuff.
Which, let's point out, like, our army was centered around the synergy of like overlapping bubbles of effect and stuff like that. And so, like, it was really hard when everything was in position.
Right.
Nothing was in position in this match. Nothing. Like, nothing was where it needed to be.
Now, let's talk about the other thing that I forced Tom to do. The other key to this match was you took one of your war scrolls, you put it in a prison on their side of the board, in their deployment zone, in the center of their deployment zone, and you weren't allowed to use it, touch it, activate it. It couldn't be killed or attacked. It was in prison. When I read this scenario, I was like, Tom, we're imprisoning Archaon. And you may remember, if you watched the previous show, that Tom was like, he was all Hufflepuff about that. And I was like, I kept reinforcing it. I was like, Tom, we're going to do this. And so we thought about tactics and how we do it. And you'll notice Archaon, look where he is. He's on their side of the board in prison. So
let me just go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was saying, let me just say an addendum, by the way. If any team should have been chosen for best team, this should have been what broke the tie between us and that other team, is the fact that we put Archaon in the prison and still walked away with this match with 3 points.
Where did that prime come out? I'm just curious. I've seen the prime in the picture. Is that where it popped out?
No, so that's an interesting choice. He didn't keep him in reserve. He just straight up deployed him.
Because when he was going to come out, he was going to deploy randomly. And he didn't want a superpowered prime off on an edge of the table that wasn't going to be helpful.
Right. Or have him drop in our zone or something like that, right? Or whatever. Because when you teleported in, we were rolling straight D6. Like, you could come in anywhere, right?
Anywhere. Yeah.
It wasn't like you're just in your deployment zone. When you were called in, you could just kind of not call to war, but just, the various specs. So I loved putting the Archaon in there. I thought it was fantastic. We ended up moving him so that he didn't actually get knocked off. But he was in the prison. Prime was down there along with Huracan and some other guys. If you see that big stone with the green rocks on top, that was the challenge stone. And you'll notice how much stuff is clustered around that. Let me point out that that stone gives everybody within a pretty wide radius of it +1 to hit and +1 to wound. And what you can't see right behind that challenge stone is a massive pack of 12 iron guts.
Yep. Backed up by 2 butchers.
Yeah. So what happens is those guys come plowing into our line where you can see like Glotkin and the War Altar and stuff like that. Thank you, John. Oh, no, it's Kenny echoing now. And I'll wait for Kenny to mute himself. There we go. Okay. I don't know why that happens sometimes. And so those iron guts came in, and oh my God, did they wreck the shop? I mean, those dudes laid down some pain, and then they ended up we went first, right, Tom? And then they double turned us, right?
No, they went first and they took the charge. And then we double turned them.
Yeah. And then we double turned them. Sorry, I had it backwards.
Yep. Yeah, we double turned them, and the only reason why we double turned them was because I used my reroll on our turn and rolled the hard 6.
Yes, you did.
Because they rolled a 5 to go for initiative, and we had missed that. We had lost that initiative, and so I burned my reroll and dropped the 6 to take initiative on that final turn.
Did it work?
I did, and so they went. We took their iron guts. We took a punch to the face. I lost more Chaos Warriors in that initial charge than I had actually lost the entire rest of the tournament combined.
So was this destruction and order combined in this team?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is destruction and order, and what happened here was that they each had different teammates, and their teammates had to cancel, and so they got collapsed into a single team,
which was fine.
Yeah, because
it was great.
The Temple of Cain had all the green crystals up there, and I was not paying attention whatsoever. So that was my teammate. You know, he was in charge of handing those out, and they were placed on people. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll put whatever. But I never really got into it until like the game was over, looking into what that actually meant. I didn't care. Like, hey, there's crystals up here. That's great. I'll put this on this guy, and they would roll, and they'd say, okay, that guy gets them back. I'm like, sure, whatever. It's fine. 2 go here, and we just went through really quickly. But yeah, I guess that makes total sense now, looking at it on a different table. And
right.
I wish I got to. You played on some good tables, and I wish I got to play on this one. But
this table was great. This table is deceptively limiting in its amount of space because of all the impassable. There's a lot of good through lines. Here's what I'll say. This was the game of insane rolls. Okay.
Yeah.
Because they got off their initial charge with the iron guts by burning a reroll. Okay. They were going to miss that charge into what they wanted. They burned and they got into it and blasted apart a bunch of stuff. They brought Glotkin to 15 wounds in their first swing.
No, that was turn 2. That was turn 2. That was I charged in. We activated, did a different activation, and they put 15 wounds on him from the outset.
There you go. Yep. So thank you. So they got that charge off a reroll. You mentioned you burning your tournament reroll to win the double turn. Do you remember I burned my reroll for the Storm Vermin unburrow? Because when my Storm Fiends burrowed up, it was random. I kept them back, and I was like, that's how I'm going to get Archaon free, because you freed your monster out of the prison by having at least 5 models come within 6 inches of the prison. I had 6 Storm Fiends. I rolled it, didn't like it, re-rolled it, and got them onto the near side, like the 6th of the board with the Celestial.
Where that Huracanum is,
where the Huracanum and the Prime are. Shot the Huracanum up, charged it, and then blew it to pieces, and then we double turned. And because of your double turn, some of the Storm Fiends then immediately ran and tagged Archaon free, and at the top of 2, out roars Archaon, who gets free because of that. And then in their bottom of 2, they had a Knight Vexilor who had just been kind of off to the side, just alive. He'd just been kind of hanging out. He's the lightning strike teleporter guy. And they had this unit of 5 Liberators. And you got a point period for just freeing your model. Like, so both players could get it, right? If you both freed your model from the prison. So we had gotten the lucky double turn and freed Archaon, who had then went up and like put the prime in the ground and stuff like that. But they rolled the Vexilor's the Vexilor's teleport is going to be random, straight D6, right? And they're like, whatever, we're doing it. So they teleport the Liberators, and he rolls the hard 4 or whatever he needed to
the exact number to drop them into the prison.
To drop the Liberators into the prison to ride Sigmar's lightning and get the point and free their warlord right in our lines. And then in come these Liberators, and this that thing is a cannon. I don't remember what the ogre cannon whose name it was.
Yeah, the scrap launcher.
It's not a scrap launcher. That's the one.
Iron Blaster.
There you go.
Thank you. So that's an Iron Blaster. So then all of a sudden this Iron Blaster and these Liberators come charging in behind our lines. This was such a ridiculous, awesome game.
Yep.
As I said at the end, and I really meant it. This is true for all my opponents. I would play anybody I played again, but these two guys were absolutely great. They were such good sports the whole time. It was so fun. There was so much back and forth of just like rolls that there was only a 1 in 6 chance to happen, and they would happen. Right? It was just nuts. So you mentioned Kenny going for the cinematic stuff. This game was just like cinematics constantly as like the Drake charges in. You can see there they've got the big Star Drake and just like melts people, just like melts face, and then gets melted.
Yeah, he comes rolling in, and he he doesn't activate. Like he hits the Chaos Warriors, but he's close enough for the Blight Kings to pile in, and so what ends up happening is they end up coming in, and like I roll because they're in the +1/+1. They have their exploding 6s to hit go to exploding 5s to hit. And so like they roll in with like 4 or 5 of these models and throw 36 hits, 32 wounds on that Star Drake, and he walks away with like 3.
It was ridiculous. He was like, I can't roll any 2s because 2s were the ultimate fail. He can reroll 1s. He had a 3 save. He rolled 32 saves. This is not a joke or an exaggeration. 32 saves. He rolled 0 2s. 0. 32 dice. 0 2s. By the third, he rolled it in like a clutch of like 10 or 11 or whatever. On the third roll, we were like, I was just staring at it going, it can't happen again. It's insanity. How can you not roll any 2s? Yeah, that Drake was just bouncing and reflecting. Just like, whatever. Da. You know, our arrows will blot out the sun. Well, we'll just fight in the rain. Like, that was this guy. It was great.
And then Thanquol just moved forward and melted his face with the Warfire Projector.
Yeah, that is what happened. But this was such a good game.
Yeah.
So I mean, overall, really, I couldn't have been happier at the end of it. Like finishing that out, it was an awesome end to the tournament. I mean, overall, this was just an A+ weekend. I really like. In the end, we ended up, as Tom mentioned, we ended up getting, we sort of had tied and on the tiebreaker, lost best team, which I was perfectly fine with. And I got my Warlord in as part of the top 3. And then the one award I didn't mention yet, Best Warlord, ended up going to Eric, the Stone Monk, who's been on the show before. Awesome dude, Half the Mortal Realms podcast, who built an awesome orc that had this like wonderful evolution of his narrative where he had like different weapons he had magnetized as the Warlord advanced in the narrative, and different bodies he stacked underneath him. It was really, really great. And so overall, it was a well-deserved win by Eric. Super good shout out to him for such a creative, wonderful idea. And it was great. I mean, Kenny, overall, how did you rate the weekend overall?
We had a good time. I wish we could have played. But I say play a little bit longer. I guess I wish I could have had more dice to roll around. Could have had more encounters.
Mm-hmm.
But the tables were great. It's very pretty to look at. It's so all over the place that it's got, I guess, neither good nor bad if you're not a key tournament player, because like you don't have to unlearn a lot of things, but at the same time, it's still so random that if I had an opponent, like, or if I had a teammate and we'd come in and signed up together and worked on this months in advance, I think it might have been a little bit different. But we just brought pretty kind of generic ho-hum armies, so we didn't have a lot of like the big fun extravagant stories so much. Because we just didn't have those models, or we didn't have like the right scenario and the time. So there unfortunately there weren't as many great stories to tell when we're talking about it, like war stories. But it was fun. I mean, I liked everyone that was there. It was the quality I'd come to expect from Holy Wars, and I wish I could play on more. I'm looking forward to Holy Wars in February, I think it is. I'm naturally going to bring Fire Slayers because they're awesome. But I'll have to think about how I want to do this, knowing now that how this kind of scroll thing works with AOS.
Well, no, Holy Wars, they have swapped to points.
Yeah, they're in points, right? And then you have like your points that you're going to play, and then you have some points left in.
So you did call the war, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I gotta wrap my brain around. So I want to, the tunneling thing is something we can do, and it's one of the few things we can do. That's really nice. But
you need to take advantage of that.
Yeah, well, it was a problem though, because I would have to have, because it was 8 scrolls I could get deployed only. The only way I could make it work is I had to kind of have 7 deployed underground, 1 Grimwrath up top, and then 4 scrolls of Berserkers of Hearthguard to get called on, because otherwise I couldn't get it worked out right with the number of tunneling and heroes to be able to call guys on. So,
is that a battalion?
No, it was just basic general. Like, put 8 down. Like, I know I wanted to tunnel, and I got 2 Smiters, but I wanted to take the Volkite, so that was like 1 guy tunneling 4 War Scrolls. That's 5. And the other one was like he tunneled the Magma Draw, so that's 7. The 8th one was the Grimwrath that went down the table, because I needed the Grimwrath and the Warlord to start calling on the 4 War Scrolls of Hearthguard, because I had no way to get them on the table unless I had my heroes tunnel up on turn 1, and then on their next hero phase, use them to call the war on. So it was an enlightening experience, and it's something I have to think about when I go for the next event, because I don't care about winning, obviously, but I would rather have more fun moments that I know I can get to. So I'm going to try and think about building my army around facing things like Archeon, Nagash, and big things.
Well,
I can just be able to play.
It's going to be only 1,800 points deployment. So I don't know how many Archeons or Nagashes are actually going to hit the table.
I'm going to assume there'll be plenty that will summon their army, and that's fine. I want to be able to have some tools, but especially with mobilities. The tunneling is very nice, but I want to be able to. I think I definitely want to have 2 Magma Dross on for that one, and I want to try and just get as much in there as fast as I can. And I can have a limit. Like, I can Fire Slayers. We can take. So we're Skaven players can do the whole dirty tunnel thing. We can too. And there's like a level, like, okay, so I will have this in my list, and should I play someone that's going to play like that, then we could match that.
Yeah,
right.
But otherwise, let's keep it kind of a proportional response. The only thing is, I would lose out on that because I would get bored after turn 1. Like, screw it, come up. this is yeah, that happened to me recently, and I caved first because it was just so damn boring. But so it was a good event, and I'm gonna try and up my game. As far as appearance too. Our 2 teams were thrown together, but if I can try and I should have the time to do more rune detailing on the bodies, and prepare myself and do an actual display board and get things ready for that one. So yeah, I'm excited for that, and I'm gonna come bring the magma heat, I should say.
There you go. I like it.
Bring the fire with a Y.
The fire with a Y. Fire Slayer player, forever. Tommy, any closing thoughts here as we close out the night?
No, I mean, it was a blast. I'm going to be at Holy Wars as well. I'm looking forward to it. Vince is the only loser here that is backing out and is not delivering.
Vince has other things he has to do. Thank you very much.
No, it's gonna be a blast. Like I said, I'm gonna probably bring some more Nurgle, but I'm gonna swap up my list pretty significantly. I think people are gonna be surprised, and so it'll be good. It'll be different. Yeah.
I look forward to it. I look forward to watching the results of you. I assume spreading gross disease and plague everywhere. And so there you go. I'll be happy not to be partnered with Nurgle. I really felt like you brought me down, being gross and disgusting the whole weekend. It was horrible.
I predict kind of a wider spread on this tournament, though, for Holy Wars 3. I think we're going to see a lot more varied, like in armies.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's like when my first event I went to in Sweden, there was like Beastmen and Spider Armies. Like, this is awesome. I love AOS. All the crap I never got to see in 8th edition. It's all out there. I think we're going to, after having this experience, I think we're going to see a little bit more. People are going to bear that in mind for their own game and their opponent. And I think we're going to see a variety of models and army lists and things that even don't really come out a lot, just because it's an opportunity to use the cool model.
No, I agree. I think that's absolutely true. Tom, I look forward to seeing you prepare your force and what happens with both of you. Kenny, I'll be watching the Fire Slayers with interest. We're going to have Steve back on sometime before Holy Wars to talk about that one. So that should be super fun. I already was chit-chatting about that. For everybody else, look, if you can get there to the Chicagoland area for either of these tourneys in the year, I'll tell you right now, here's my summation statement. Do it. Get on the list. Watch it. You won't regret it. It's an awesome tournament with awesome people, awesome tables, great scenarios. I don't know what more you could want. Like, that's.
If you guys want to see more of the tables, we've showed a little bit in some pictures. On my blog on TGA, I've posted all of the tables. I've posted all of the armies. So I've put out a lot of content with regard to Holy Havoc. So you guys can go check that stuff out if this interests you. Likewise, Mitch and I did a show with Mitch where we kind of talked a little bit more about the mechanics, about what happened. We talked more. This show, we've talked more about the scenarios themselves. Where with Mitch's show, we talked more about the tables and the effects of the tables and all of what each table did and stuff like that. So I'd encourage you to check out Mitch's show as well if you are interested in the actual Holy Havoc tables themselves.
Cool.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, gentlemen. Well, Kenny, as always, absolute pleasure. It was good to see you, buddy, again there at the tournament, and I'm sure I will see you again at one not too far in the future. Are you going to be at Adepticon?
I probably, yeah.
Yeah, if nothing else, I'll see you then. But all right, more Fire Slayer playing. But as to everyone else, as always, thank you very much for watching. We always appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Or we'll see you next Wednesday, whichever comes.